and we're gonna go to react to a video about someone that's essentially trying to convince everyone to quit Airbnb. Because y'all know we talk about real estate and Airbnb on this channel, so let's hear what they have to say.
The period of 30 days.
Oh, started in the middle for some reason. This is more of a compilation. It's not someone necessarily saying any one thing. So we're going to actually get to hear multiple people's perspective on why they're giving up on Airbnb. So let's hear what they have to say.
Just saw a video of someone talking about Airbnbs and how much they suck, and we're going back into the hotel phase of things because they're better.
So here's some lessons that I recently learned from Airbnb. Take video.
So my first beef is that it's actually not that much cheaper than a hotel in my experience.
Is anybody else here just absolutely sick of Airbnbs? Back in the day when I used to travel, I used to always stay at Airbnbs.
Airbnb is kind of falling out of favor, and it really got me thinking, when did Airbnb get so bad?
Airbnb hosts are absolutely...
Just real quick, they're not giving any reasons why they hate Airbnbs. So they could, I guess the guy didn't play them because he wants to set up a narrative. So let's keep going.
Done with Airbnb. So this guy's been managing Airbnb since 2020. This is during the pandemic. And the guest had more entitled and difficult post-pandemic guests right now. I'm not really sure why, but many hosts are saying that difficult guests are becoming more and more common after the pandemic. And I'm not really sure why. Maybe because, many people are feeling like Airbnbs are honestly kind of dirty. Because in the very beginning, like Airbnbs were like a really cool concept. And the amount of expectations for Airbnbs are pretty low. I think Airbnb expectations are a lot higher considering Airbnbs are very expensive. Okay. And especially Airbnbs, people are kind of mad that the checkout instructions kind of look like this.
Hold on. Let's read some of this. So checkout time is 10 a.m. Please collect all towels, pile them on the floor in the laundry room. Please make sure to load all dirty dishes in the dishwasher. Barbecue grill must be clean and ready for next guests. Please take out garbage and recycling and place all the applicable items in the appropriate containers outside. I'm assuming he's going to go down so we can see the rest of the list. Okay, here's my take on this as an Airbnb host. Now, keep in mind, I deal in studio apartments, not houses. So houses have more cleanup to do. So that's probably why hosts are asking more. I personally wouldn't because I can't give a reason. I wouldn't because that's not the experience they want to have. But some of this stuff, let's be honest, it is kind of standard practice. And this is where comparing the hotels isn't really fair because hotels have a systemized cleaning staff that is focused on one particular building. And there's usually like 50 or like 100 rooms in that building. So the smaller stuff can be done from a system perspective without any kind of inconveniencing. But let's see. The checkout is at 10 a.m. Well, obviously it's time for the guests to leave, so it's important that they know that. Collect all the towels and pile them on the floor in the laundry room. My version of that is please leave the dirty towels in the hamper. There's a black hamper in all my units. Just leave the towels in the hamper. It's a courteous thing to do because if they don't, then dirt towels on the floor will give like that damp mildew smell, and it would just require more cleanup. But if they don't do it, it's not like I'm getting mad or anything. It's just I don't think it's anything wrong with having it part of the checkout instructions. Make sure you load all the dirty dishes in the dishwasher. Once again, I think this is being compared to hotels, and where hotels this scenario isn't there. You're going to go downstairs to eat in the lobby. And if you eat anything in the hotel room, it's usually going to have takeout. You're eating takeout. So there aren't any dishes to clean. So given that situation, I don't think that's unreasonable to put in the checkout instructions. My point is, I just want to get mad if they don't do it. It couldn't hurt to put it there. You get what I'm saying? Can't say anything about the barbecue grill because it's not part of the equation. Please take out garbage and recycling and place all applicable items in the appropriate containers outside. I don't think it's unreasonable. Let me know in the comments section. Do you think I am a hypocrite for saying that? Do y'all feel like these are unreasonable? Because a lot of these are actually in my checkout instructions. I just don't get bent out of shape if people don't do them, but I would say it's about 50-50. Well, maybe like 70-30. But I'm catering to a business clientele. A lot of them don't mind doing this stuff. So it does depend on your customer avatar too.
You're basically the maid, and at the same time, you're also paying a bunch of money for maid cleaning fees, which aren't cheap at all.
Okay, here's one thing I will say. I try and keep my cleaning fee relatively cheap. Like the $150 cleaning fees. Now, if you're dealing in houses, the house is bigger, so obviously it needs to be more. But comparing it to studio apartments, I've seen cleaning fees be like 75, 80, $85. I charge a cleaning fee of $40. And if might be controversial, but if you really want to rewire this, you could just take the cleaning fee off and just rework the cleaning fee into your night base night fee. That way there won't be any complaining about this. At least that's where my head goes. But yeah, I think hosts could kind of fall back on the cleaning fee itself. Maybe we rework some of that into the base fare. That way you won't get stuff like this.
So many people have a lot of gripes with Airbnbs. The hosts who are having the Airbnbs also hate being an Airbnb host because property taxes are high. Airbnb takes a bunch of money from you as well. There's massive cuts. And it's just like not great all around. This is kind of the reason why the hotel industry is doing so well, because Airbnbs are just not that great. Also, they're not exactly the cleanest either.
Okay. I'm going to say this right now. Whoever this is clearly has a bias. Maybe he has not stayed at the best Airbnbs, but there's a filtering process. And I feel like this guy is probably one of the guests that isn't really doing his due diligence on if a place is the best place for him to stay. Yeah, like looking at the reviews. You want to know the biggest way to filter if an Airbnb is legit? Why don't you actually Google that person or Google that company's name and see if they have a company website? And when you see that company website, see if they have Google reviews, which means they've been around for a minute. That means they're being held accountable not only from to Airbnb guests, but also to the general public. That usually means they probably have their stuff together. They're a quote unquote legitimate business. And any grievances that you have, if you have some grievances, they'll address them immediately. Or if they don't address them immediately, they'll offer like some kind of partial refund, like refund the first month, the first day or something like that. I know you'll say that defeats the purpose of using the Airbnb, but I'm just saying food for thought. If you're going with the Airbnb host that has like maybe 2 reviews, just got started, the pictures don't necessarily look all that quality. I mean, like you kind of like, what do you expect? There are some genuine like, hey, this place looks solid, but it was bad. But I think those are the minority of stuff.
And by the way, the U.S. economy isn't exactly great. We're seeing record layoffs. More people are just staying at home. Less people are going on expensive vacations, so on and so forth. This person is an Airbnb owner and host, managed 20 plus units from very low end to ultra high end, and basically said that Airbnbs are harder and harder to make money. Was one of the OG Airbnb guys. Started off with just 6 Airbnbs in a city of 600,000 people. So obviously Airbnbs were booked every single day. Now there's 1,400 Airbnbs. That's insane. And
He's right. Competition has gone up, so you need to do something to differentiate yourself in the market.
when they first started, out of $100, get paid $87. Not bad. Airbnb fees are kind of high, but now only get $61. Airbnb takes so much of your fees. Okay. And for the high end listings have risen in part due to competition. There is a lot of competition right now in the Airbnb market, not to mention home insurance is high, property tax is high, utilities are high. I can't complain enough about my electricity bill. It's too expensive.
I'm going to say this, then I'm going to let the video play more because I know I'm stopping a lot. If you're like me, you'll become the king of poachers. I'm a poacher. What I mean by that is someone books me on Airbnb, and it's not that crazy to have repeat customers if they have a good experience and you take care of your properties. But the second time they come, I have a strategy to essentially have their second booking and any booking going forward happen off the platform. See, Airbnb connected us, right? That's great, and I give them credit for that. But one thing I don't like about Airbnb is, as far as I'm concerned, that's Airbnb's customer. They're not my customer. because I don't have their email or their phone number. Who has the means of reaching out to the customer without the third party being involved? That's whose customer it is. But once I set something up with them off the app, well, they don't pay a service fee. I don't pay a service fee, so I can offer them a cheaper rate, but my margins are fatter now. I think a lot of people aren't actually looking at that. They're not looking at Airbnb as a lead source. They're looking at it as every transaction I have with a guest has to go through this platform. And that's just simply not true. You should be building your own brand potentially. And if they come through Airbnb, great. But your objective is to get them off the platform for their next stay if they're going to book with you again.
Also, Airbnb host quality has also gone down so much. Okay. Isn't about Airbnb, it's more about the host. Sometimes you're paying more at an Airbnb than a hotel. You don't get the same quality. You used to have to trust these hotels to hire a professional cleaner to clean the sheets. And let's be real, Airbnbs aren't exactly the cleanest. If I go to Nashville, I'll never get an Airbnb. I'll much rather get a 5-star hotel, something new, right? Let's say it's $300 for a 2 queen. I split with a buddy. It's $150 a night. Honestly, it's cheaper than Airbnb. It's cleaner than Airbnb, and the amenities are so much better. I know it might sound kind of crazy, but
Well, you sound very biased. So you keep saying using the word Airbnb, but Airbnb is just a platform you're using to find someone. Each person you book with is their own individual brand or business. So you have bad experiences with them. They're just on Airbnb. So if you do a better job vetting who you stay with, like I said, Google the person or Google the business, then you'll probably have a better result. Only go with those that have an established website outside Airbnb. And you go ahead and still book them on Airbnb if you want because of the insurances and all that stuff. But my point is that could be part of your vetting process. I think buyers are actually kind of getting a little lazy in that regard.
I truly feel like hotels are better than Airbnbs, like in the long term. This is why hotels aren't afraid of Airbnbs for a reason. Another big thing is Airbnbs are so expensive. There's an Airbnb tax, there's a maid cleaning fee. It's just a headache. I'm not a big fan anymore. I used to love these things. Now I don't. So let's see what happens next. What do you guys think? Check out some of these videos.
You might not know this, but the Airbnb market on the coast has been crashing out for a couple years now. There have been so many vacancies and so many empty rentals all over the coast, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, that people are starting to freak out and they are all putting their homes and condo homes for sale. About 3 to 4 years ago, there were hardly any listings for sale under like 300,000 in Myrtle Beach, and now there's like 1,500 condos. I have a reason for this, and I'm going to explain why. And this is like my personal opinion, but I've been doing real estate for over 26 years. I am a team leader for 2 high-performing teams in North and South Carolina, and I've been watching the market steadily, and I also own Airbnbs. And this might be controversial, but I think a whole bunch of people during COVID used their PPP loan to buy Airbnb rental properties thinking they could get rich. Because remember, no one could travel, no one could go abroad, no one could go anywhere, and they had all this extra money. So they were spending it and they were traveling to Myrtle Beach and Florida and going to all these places. And the Airbnb nightly rates were skyrocketing. There was a shortage of places to stay.
Let's hit on something she said real quick. She's right. There's a lot of what she's referring to is known as revenge traveling in the travel industry. But there's a lot of revenge travel. I mean, we were cooped in our homes for damn near 2 years, maybe in some areas longer. So when things started to open back up, as she pointed out, people clearly had the money to, whether it be the PPP loans or the EIDL grants or the stimulus checks, or just the fact that you're not going out spending money in the economy because there's nowhere to go. So by default, if you have money coming in, that savings should be building up quite naturally. People spent money and they booked places, but the revenge travel can't last forever. I do think a lot of hosts, I guess myself included, I hopped in the game at the end of 2021, so not during the right after the pandemic. So I benefited from a good portion of that revenge travel. But once that was over, it lasted for maybe about a year and some change. You had to actually become a good host and follow all the things that include being a. You have to follow all the standards and rules of being a good host. I'm not going to talk about what those are because I made several videos on this channel. check the Airbnb playlist that's going to be linked in the description. But yeah, I agree with her.
So what did a bunch of people do? They bought rental properties and they had no wherewithal, like no education. They did not know that sometimes when the market is bad for rental properties, that you have to carry the note, the HOA dues, the insurance, everything, the taxes for a while sometimes when you have a lot of vacancy. And I also think lenders are at fault here because they were making loans like crazy just to anyone. If you had 20, 30, 40% down, they just made you the loan. Well, so I've been talking to so many sellers and they are tired of paying the vacancy. They're barely breaking even in some cases. And people are not, they're broke. Like, look at the economy. Everybody's in a bad place. And now if you travel, you can travel abroad. You can.
Real quick, she's not saying anything I disagree with, but the people who are suffering the most in terms of just the economy and vacancies or whatever, if you are just catering your units to the short-term rental crowd, that's very capricious, chaotic, and vulnerable to everything she's saying. But if you're catering to the midterm rental crowd, let's just break down terminology real quick. Short-term rental is under 30 days. So someone's staying at one of your properties under 30 days, that qualifies as a short-term rental. And a midterm rental is staying between 30 days and 1 year, anything in between there. Some people would like to call this corporate housing because those are usually the types of people that would be staying in that range is corporate housing. That's usually how long contracts last, somewhere in between there, 3 months, 6 months, maybe even a year or slightly under a year. And long term rental is anyone staying over a year, right? So each one of those segmented markets has their own tactics and strategies and advantages to cater to. So when buying and researching a property in the area on where you're going to do Airbnb or just like rent the property in general, you got to take into account, hey, will this perform in the short-term rental market, the mid-term rental market, and the long-term rental market? And make sure it caters to at least two of them. If you're not getting at least two, like, hey, I know for sure it will cater the short-term rentals, and you haven't looked at the other two, when stuff like this happens, you're going to be screwed. Same goes for the other two categories. Like all my units, I target corporate housing, but it is catering to short-term rentals too in the meantime. And right now, all my units have corporate housing clients in there. So the short-term rental market is kind of hurting right now, but I could care less. Why? Because there's someone in all my units for the next 3 months. And while they're in there, I could be prospecting to get the next 3 months filled with another corporate housing client. So you want to make sure your strategy actually involves working with a scenario where your unit and the area that you're buying property in can accommodate all three markets or at the very least two. So yeah.
Go anywhere you want. So people aren't spending, $400 a night in an Airbnb in Myrtle Beach anymore. And it's the nicer units, the more beautiful units that are winning out on the rentals. And so if you have a crappy, junky unit that you paid all the money for during COVID, you're sitting empty. And now these sellers want to sell. They've only owned these places for like 2 or 3 years and they can't sell. They're not selling. They're just sitting. The condos here are sitting for 120, 160, 180 days and not selling. And on top of it, Myrtle Beach had a hurricane like not too long ago, which drove up all the insurance prices. And then a whole bunch of buildings had assessments due to flooding and damage.
I was about to say, now one thing about the area she's talking about, insurance companies in general were bailing on Florida and California because of what she said, the hurricanes. And that doesn't make it easy to sell a property there. So there is some outside factors contributing to people not being able to sell a property there too. I mean, that's it's just kind of unfortunate. But that is why you want to do your market research. That's why I would never touch either Florida or probably even California with a 10-foot pole for different reasons in terms of renting property.
So these people are having to come out of pocket sometimes $10,000, $15,000 for an assessment, and their insurance doubled and tripled. And there's no bookings. Right now, the rate's being at, 7% ish or 6% ish. that doesn't mean that an investor can get that rate. You got to tack on another 1.5%. So typically right now, interest rates for other investors to buy these properties are probably like in the 8s or 9s. So there is no real like push to go buy these places because investors are kind of waiting, and they're waiting for ones that they can get a deal on. They're actually out here making offers 20, 50, 100,000 less than asking. Listen, if you're an investor that can pay cash, you can get a deal. If you own these cash, you're fine because you can probably break even with the taxes and insurance and HOA dues. Or if you're going to gamble a little bit, like a lot of people do, they use like real estate as a gambling vehicle, and they're investors. They don't even care about the rate right now. They're just trying to get a deal, like price wise, get in there, get the loan locked in, and they're going to put it on like a 5-year balloon, amortize over 30 years, and then they're just going to refinance it when the rates go down. I work with a lot of savvy investors, and I am also one of those.
Yeah, just to break down some real estate terminology for y'all. So, balloon payment, essentially, a balloon contract is you're going to be paying an agreed upon amount every single month until you hit the balloon payment, and at which when you hit the balloon payment due date, you pay the rest of the mortgage or contract up. So, if you have a 5-year balloon, that means that you'll be paying a monthly fee. Well, you'll be paying on that house or mortgage or whatever every single month, the rate that's in the contract. But the moment that balloon payment is due on the 5th year on a date, you have to pay the rest of it off at that date, minus what you've already paid. So that's what a balloon payment is. I'm not going to say it's a risky thing. It's something you have to have a plan for, but maybe it is more on the riskier side because if you do it in an area like this, something can happen that's out of your control, and here you go.
I consider myself, and I've been buying properties at a higher interest rate. Yeah, it kind of sucks. I'm not really making a lot of cash flow, but I'm waiting for the trend of the interest rates to go down. I will refinance later. You don't have to agree with this, but this is my strategy. I make content on here to help real estate agents, but I also want to talk about how real estate agents can use real estate for their own generational wealth. And
Okay, so I think I've heard enough. She's starting to go into a different topic, and this video is like I'm scanning through it right here. It's a compilation of people essentially hating on Airbnb. Maybe I'll do a part two to this in the next stream, but I think I've said everything that I want to say about this. And the host himself, clearly, he has a bias. I don't know if he had a huge bad experience with Airbnb that's turned him off, and he wants to take it out in the world. But it is what it is. But yeah, we're that does it for this segment. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe if you're new. And I will link my Airbnb host playlist and how you can make money using a rental arbitrage with studio apartments or just apartments in general in the description and the pinned comments.